Welcome. Scott here. I will be covering on the current global exclusive event, Cloudy with the Chance of Squall. The featured units that are synergy for the event are Cloud and Kate Sith from Final Fantasy VII, Vayne from Final Fantasy XII, Ada from Final Fantasy XIV, Squall from Final Fantasy VIII and Cloud of Darkness from Final Fantasy III. The event will mark the C90 awakenings for Cloud and Squall. Their BT will be realizable. We will be fighting to Rafflessia, which has 17.5 million HP. There are no other major resistances. The turn requirement for the fight is 50. There are no HP requirements for the fight, instead we need bring a greatsword user for one of the clear requirements. Sorry for the delay on the boss guide, as I am really bogged down with work recently. So hopefully this guide will help those who are still struggling with the event. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA Plus Orb Conditions. The orb will be activated at the 79% HP threshold at the counter of 8. Every action taken by the unit will downtick the orb by 2. The countdown ability is fatal. To uptick the orb, you need to fulfill one of the orb conditions. 1. Delay the target by at least 2 turns. 2. Reduce the downtick of the orb by 1 with dealing critical brave damage. The orb is catered to the 2 featured delayers in the banner, Cloud and Cloud of Darkness. Other than these 2 units, other units can do 2 turns delay are Selphie with her LD, Arania with her S1, Quistis with her S2 and Lightning with her EX+. Ramza also meet the orb conditions with his LD. But I would suggest you to wait till his rework and C90 comes. You can consider bringing critical rate buffers like Kate Sith to help your party, as critical damage will result the orb downtick to 1 instead of 2. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Gabrin, Lilysette, Fran, Maria, and Ignis are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Sid and Kimari are also viable. Most recently C90 units have Aura enchant call. You can use Dissidia DB call finder to find out more. To uptick the orb, you need to do at least 2 turn delay. The calls that have 2 turn delay are Cloud and Ramza. You can help your party a bit with calls that boost critical rate like Kate Sith or Barad. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Garnet, Leela, Eiko, Ramza, Purim, Setzer, Agrias, Kate Sith, Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Rem, Lyud, and Sarah. Garnet or Ramza BT plus support will help to trivialize the fight, that you could finish the fight before you worry about the boss mechanics. Leela will make the boss attacks a non-issue, since the boss don't have any guaranteed hit attacks unless you allow the boss act while it is in concentration mode. If you don't want to play to the orb conditions, you can bring Eiko for the fight. Unless you are doing full evasion strategy involving Leela, damage mitigation is highly recommended, as the boss will hit very hard without any attack down debuffs. Damage mitigation options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Beatrix, Orin, Zack, Guy, Golov, and Bash. For the clear condition, you need to bring a greatsword unit. You can consider bringing one of the following units: Cloud, Zack, Squall, Vayne, Beatrix, Jet, Chaos, Gilgamesh, Ash, or Pain. Zack will make the battle a non-factor if you have his BT, and his C90 awakenings will make his EX hits like a truck. Cloud is the obvious choice since he is synergy and he can easily uptick the orb with his LD. For 2 turn delays, you can bring either one of the following: Cloud, Cloud of Darkness, Selphie, Arania, Quistis, Lightning, and Ramza. As mentioned earlier, it is better to wait for Ramza C90 awakenings first before considering bringing him for the fight. Other than the 2 turn delay method, you can use counter method to uptick the orb. Most of counter/off-turn damage have high critical chance. Upon triggering, the counters and off-turn damage will uptick the orb when the boss acts. You can consider bringing the following units: Ace, Beatrix, Maria, Cor, Orin, and Leon. I have listed down some additional units below which can be useful for the fight. They are Galvez, Locke, Machina, Cypher, Firion and Noel. For Cypher, please do note that his delays don't uptick the orb, and his delay is one turn delay followed by another attack that delays another turn. Despite that, he is still great for the fight for his awesome damage. I have marked all the greatsword units with red border. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The fight is a reskin version of the original event where Vayne LD and BT make their debut along with Cloud of Darkness. The difference is that the boss has higher stats and different orb conditions. There are two key mechanics to watch out for. The boss will warp their turns with debuffs cleansing upon you reach the 8th consecutive party action. Call abilities, AA, and Burst Plus will count as one party action. Burst phase and Summon phase won't add to the count. Boss A will enter into concentration on its turn. If you break the concentration, it will use Toxify. If you didn't break the concentration, it will use Toxify Plus. To break the concentration, you need to accumulate 4 actions before the boss could act. You will see the boss emitting pollen when it is in concentration mode. Comparing to the recent bosses, the Rafflessia have higher base stats. I will talk about this in later part of the guide. The Brave damage and Brave gain reductions are the same for the original event. Due to the frequent cleansing and high base stats, Toxify will become dangerous if you get broken by it. You can see that the Orb Condition is quite contradicting with the boss mechanics. You won't want to take too many consecutive turns, other the Rafflessia will warp its turn forward upon your 8th turn. But at the same time, you need to do a 2-turn delay to uptick the orb. It is also important to note that every action you take will downtick the orb by 2 unless you are doing critical damage. The orb will downtick by 1 instead. You can also uptick the orb if you are doing critical damage while in summon or burst phase. The common team comps that I have used for the fight consist of 2 general setups. 1. Delay and nuke setup. Abusing the strengths of the BT auras along with launch auras, you can easily nuke the boss to death before it even poses a threat. However, do watch out for the turn warp. Lock BT friend is very good for these setup. 2. Counter setup. Since majority of the counters usually have high chance of critical, you can make use of this by deploying a counter-oriented setup. The counters will uptick the orb while they are triggered. Beatrix is an MVP for this setup thanks to her recent C90 awakenings, and she offers awesome safety button with her Holy Knight safeguard. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, Brave damage, and Brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight, 79% and 49% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defenses by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defenses to 300%. The maximum Brave damage reduction auras is 90%. The maximum Brave gain reduction auras are 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the Brave gain and Brave damage reduction auras, you can use Brave damage up debuffs like Jack, Sephiroth, or deploy a support with Brave damage up like Lena. Rem is one of the rare supports that provide Brave gain up. Unlike other bosses, the Rafflessia can cleanse its off the debuffs frequently. It will cleanse all debuffs when the turn warp condition is triggered. It will cleanse all non-framed debuffs when it uses Toxify. It will cleanse all debuffs when it uses Toxify Plus. Thanks to the mechanics I have mentioned earlier, it will be very difficult to upkeep your damage unless your party are supported with the relevant BT auras. Don't be surprised to see your character hitting ones, as the bosses have abnormal defense stats compared to the recent bosses. Now let's cover the key boss mechanics you need to watch out for when fighting this battle. At the start of the fight, you will see the following prompt. Rafflessia's turn rate become instantaneous after 7 consecutive player party turns. Upon the 8th consecutive turn, which result to triggering, the Rafflessia will cleanse all debuffs and warp its turn to act. It can be very dangerous if it is targeting all and using Toxify. Every action will count as one party turn except for your summon phase and burst phase. Due to the frequent cleansing mechanic, upkeeping your debuffs for the longest possible turns is important here so you can maintain your damage output. If you are going with a counter-oriented team comp setup, breaking the boss out of order is a great strategy here, but make sure you accumulate 4 consecutive actions to dissipate the concentrating mode. Don't use a debuff call when the next turn will result the boss triggering the cleanse. Now, let's talk about the boss other key mechanic, concentrating. Boss A will always start in concentrating mode. When it is concentrating, you will see pollen emitting from it. To break the concentration, you need to accumulate 4 actions before the boss acts. If you break the concentration, the pollen aura will dissipate. It will use Toxify. If you don't break concentration, it will use Toxify Plus. Toxify is debuff cleansing of non-framed buffs, with the boss following up with a Brave Gain, an AoE Brave plus HP attack. Toxify Plus is a full debuff cleanse with the boss following up with a Brave Gain, an AoE Brave plus HP attack. Other than having higher potencies compared to Toxify, it is also a guaranteed hit. After boss A use Toxify and a few more turns later, you will see B entering into the concentration mode. The cycle will alternate between the bosses. As the debuffs cleansed and the boss have high innate base stats, the attack will hurt a lot without any damage mitigation. For your convenience, I have also listed down the boss other move set for your reference. Now we have come to the last slide of the guide. I got a lot of comments on my runs regards to the boss Tankiness. So, I have done some research. On the table, you can see the boss stats from the recent fights along with the one from the original event. Compared to other bosses that we have faced recently, the boss has significantly higher attack and defense stats. The Sahajan Shaman that we encounter in the Sidor BT event has 13,000 defense stats, while the Rafflessia has 18,500 defense stats. The auras are also a lot stronger than the fights that we are facing recently. So in short, the fight will feel a lot tougher due to the following reasons. 1. The boss have higher base stats. 2. We are facing a stronger Brave damage and Brave gain reduction auras. 3. Thanks to the boss mechanics, your debuffs will get cleansed pretty often. To circumvent against the mechanics, here are some tips. The first one is the obvious one. Use BT auras. Do note that different BT aura will stack. Lock and Zack BT aura will ensure smoothly sailing for the fight as long as you upkeep them. Even you are hitting ones on Brave hits, Garnet BT aura will ensure you can do damage thanks to Brave gain from the HP damage auras. Always bring a powerful support for the fight. Supports like Garnet, Ram, Leela is good for the fight. In the coming days, Ramza will be viable for the fight as well. As the boss has high defense stats and your debuffs will get frequently cleansed, the best way is rely on defense ignore mechanic or critical. Kate gives 100% critical rate to the party, and his LD mechanic allows you to gain Brave even you are dealing ones on your Brave hits. The other mechanic is ignoring defense. Lock BT aura give your party ignore defense auras. You can also bring units like Orin or Beatrix that have innate ignore defense utility. We have come to the end of the boss guide. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please do give the video a like. Please do subscribe to my channel for future similar content. Bye.